The conference room buzzed with quiet murmurs as Jinwoo Park, CEO of Daehan International, stood at the head of the table, fumbling with his notes. Investors from across the globe were seated around him, polite smiles masking their growing confusion. Jinwoo's hands shook slightly as he tried to explain the quarterly projections. Words stumbled out of his mouth, uneven and fractured. Aria Bennett's eyes widened. She had been called in as the translator just yesterday, and already the stakes were sky high. If Jinwoo failed this meeting, millions of dollars in investments could slip away. She gritted her teeth and rose from her chair, walking briskly to the front. "Excuse me," she said smoothly, her voice clear and calm, cutting through the tension. "If I may clarify Mr. Park's points?" The investors' heads turned. Arya's presence was unexpected, her poise instantly commanding attention. She translated his faltering English into concise, persuasive phrasing, each word calculated to convey authority and vision. Jinwoo's eyes flickered to her, a flash of irritation crossing his face. His pride burned at being overshadowed, yet he couldn't deny the relief her voice brought. She continued seamlessly, interpreting his complex strategy and even softening the rough edges of his tone. Investors began nodding, impressed, leaning in. The room's energy shifted, and Jinwoo straightened slightly, caught between embarrassment and admiration. When the last slide was projected, one of the senior investors smiled broadly. "Excellent presentation, Mr. Park," he said, glancing at Arya. "And your translator is exceptional." Jinwoo's jaw tightened. "I appreciate the feedback," he said tersely, his voice slightly strained. He turned his gaze on Arya, sharp and unreadable. Arya met his eyes steadily. "It's all part of the job," she replied softly, almost under her breath, but loud enough for him to hear. The meeting concluded without further incident, and the room emptied quickly. Jinwoo lingered, letting the investors leave, his hands clasped behind his back. Arya approached, careful not to appear overconfident. "You handled that brilliantly," he said finally, voice low, almost hesitant. She tilted her head, curiosity mingling with amusement. "It's what I'm here for, sir." He gave a measured look, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Be careful, Ms. Bennett. Overshadowing me in front of investors could be dangerous." Arya smiled faintly, sensing the challenge beneath his words. "I'll keep that in mind," she said. The next few days were a whirlwind. Arya became indispensable almost immediately, navigating meetings, calls, and negotiations with finesse. Jinwoo watched quietly, his feelings a mix of irritation, admiration, and something he wasn't ready to name. She had a warmth and fearlessness that drew people in effortlessly, while he remained distant, calculating, reserved. One afternoon, a junior executive lingered by her desk, attempting a casual flirtation. Jinwoo's voice cut sharply through the open office. "Step away from her. Now!" Arya's eyes widened in surprise, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I had no idea the CEO had a protective streak," she whispered, barely audible. Jinwoo didn't respond, but a subtle twitch of a smirk betrayed him. A week later, Arya received an invitation to meet Jinwoo's father, Mr. Park, a powerful patriarch with a reputation for both authority and charm. The family residence was imposing, elegant, yet surprisingly welcoming. Mr. Park's handshake was firm, his eyes assessing, yet warm. "You must be careful with my son," he said with a playful grin. "He can be stubborn, protective, sometimes more than he should be." Arya chuckled softly. "I think I can handle him, sir," she replied, meeting his gaze with confidence. Jinwoo, standing behind his father, flushed slightly, straightening his suit to mask the discomfort in his chest. He was unaccustomed to anyone handling his father's tests so well. especially a newcomer. During dinner, Arya navigated subtle social tests with charm and intelligence, keeping the conversation lively while avoiding any faux pas. Every glance she exchanged with Jinwoo carried an unspoken weight. Every small smile tightened the invisible thread between them. Back at the office, their interactions were charged with subtle tension. Banter became more frequent, teasing remarks and playful challenges laced with an undercurrent of unspoken attraction. "Why are you smiling at him like that?" Jinwoo asked sharply one afternoon, noticing Arya's easy rapport with a visiting client. She raised an eyebrow, her voice light. "I'm not smiling at him. I'm just being polite." He didn't reply, jaw tightening, but his gaze lingered longer than necessary. Days turned into weeks, each interaction building layers of tension, admiration, and jealousy neither could yet name. They moved through the office in a delicate dance of professionalism and emotion, each moment between them crackling with anticipation. Then came the corporate gala. Arya entered the grand ballroom in a sleek, emerald gown, every movement commanding attention. Cameras flashed, conversations paused as investors and executives alike were drawn to her effortless elegance and charisma. Jinwoo, standing near the edge of the crowd, felt an unmistakable pang of jealousy. His eyes followed her, subtle but possessive, as she engaged with clients. When she laughed lightly at a remark from another executive, he stepped closer, just enough that their arms brushed. "Why do you make everyone look so small next to you?" he murmured, low, almost a whisper meant only for her. Arya tilted her head, teasing, her eyes sparkling. "Maybe because you let me." A silence fell between them, heavy and charged, as if the world had narrowed to only the two of them, amidst the glittering lights and murmuring crowd. The gala continued around them, a swirl of laughter, soft music, and clinking glasses. But for Arya and Jinwoo, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. Every glance, every subtle movement carried unspoken weight. Arya had handled the room with effortless charm, captivating everyone she spoke to, and Jinwoo could feel the tight coil of jealousy twisting deeper in his chest. As Arya moved toward a group of international investors, Jinwoo followed, keeping his presence just close enough that she could feel it. When one of the investors complimented her eloquence, Jinwoo stepped slightly forward, brushing her arm. She noticed, but only tilted her head, a playful smile teasing him. "Careful," he murmured, voice low, just for her. "Everyone seems to like you more than me." Arya laughed softly, the sound like wind chimes, and leaned slightly closer. "Maybe that's because you're standing too far away." He wanted to argue, to demand attention, but instead, he swallowed his words. There was a magnetic pull between them, undeniable and dangerous. And yet, the rest of the night wasn't just about flirtation. Investors were impressed, and Arya navigated conversations flawlessly, leaving Jinwoo both frustrated and fascinated. The gala ended, but the tension between them didn't. They stepped out into the cool night air, the city lights reflecting off the rain-soaked streets. Arya's emerald gown shimmered in the neon reflections, and Jinwoo felt an unexpected, almost painful swell in his chest. "I didn't realize you were this good at handling pressure," he said, his tone softer, less commanding. Arya looked at him, a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. "I've handled worse. Don't worry. You'll catch up." He frowned, frustrated that her teasing made his pulse race. "You think I need to?" "Maybe," she said lightly, "if you want to keep up with me." The next week was tense. Jinwoo's father, Mr. Park, had scheduled a private meeting with Arya, inviting her to the family residence once more. Arya approached with a mix of excitement and apprehension, knowing the Patriarch's reputation for both charm and subtle manipulation. The house was grand, but surprisingly warm. Mr. Park greeted her with a firm handshake and a twinkle in his eye. "Ah, Arya, it's good to see you again. You handled yourself well at the gala. Better than I expected." Arya smiled politely. "Thank you, sir. I'm just doing my job." He leaned back slightly, his gaze sharp yet curious. "And yet, I see my son behaving strangely around you. Careful, you might be teaching him things he didn't know he needed to learn." Jinwoo, standing quietly behind his father, felt a heat rise in his cheeks. Protective instincts flared, yet he found himself silently admiring her composure. "Don't start teasing her, father," he muttered, though his voice carried little force. Mr. Park chuckled. "Teasing is part of life, my boy. Arya, you've passed my tests so far, but let's see how you handle dinner conversation." The dinner unfolded with subtle challenges, questions meant to probe her wit, charm, and resilience. Arya responded with ease, each answer thoughtful, confident, and polite, impressing the Patriarch while keeping Jinwoo slightly on edge. He had never seen anyone handle his father so deftly, and though it annoyed him, he couldn't deny the fascination creeping in. By the end of the evening, Mr. Park leaned back, satisfied. "Well done, Arya. You've passed. And my son? Well, perhaps he could learn a few things from you." Jinwoo's jaw tightened, the faintest flush rising across his cheeks. Arya, sensing his discomfort, offered a polite smile and quietly whispered, "Thank you for the trust, sir." Back at the office, tension between Arya and Jinwoo simmered. The professional environment made it impossible to act on the undercurrent of emotions, yet every glance, every small gesture carried weight. One afternoon, a miscommunication sparked conflict. A colleague misinterpreted a conversation between Arya and a visiting client, reporting it to Jinwoo with a hint of exaggeration. His jealousy flared, and he stormed into Arya's office. "Were you trying to undermine me?" he asked sharply, voice tight with restrained emotion. Arya looked up, startled. "What? No! I was clarifying a technical point. You know that." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I saw the way you laughed at him. Do you think that's appropriate?" Arya's eyes widened. "Jinwoo." It was a conversation about projections, not a flirtation. "You're letting your pride get in the way." He turned away briefly, struggling to maintain control. Then quietly, he muttered, I don't like feeling this way." Arya's heart softened. She stood, taking a step closer. "Maybe that's because you're not used to someone who challenges you, who doesn't just bow to authority." He didn't respond immediately, but the tension in the room shifted. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something more fragile, more urgent. That weekend, Arya attended a casual company event, team-building exercises at an outdoor venue. Jinwoo's presence was inevitable, and the open-air environment forced interaction. Games, tasks, and laughter made the tension palpable, yet playful. Jinwoo's protective instincts showed subtly as he ensured no one crossed boundaries. But he also laughed, something rare and unguarded. During a break, Arya approached him cautiously. "You're not as scary outside the office," she teased lightly. He glanced at her, lips twitching almost into a smile. "Don't get used to it," he said. "The office is where I'm untouchable." Her laugh was light, genuine, and it struck something in him. He realized he wanted more than this. Professional facade. He wanted connection, warmth, and honesty. But admitting that was far harder than maintaining his icy persona. By the time the next week arrived, the stakes were rising. Investors were impressed with Arya's contributions. Jinwoo's jealousy simmered beneath his composed exterior, and Mr. Park's subtle influence continued to shape the dynamic. Each interaction, each glance, each small exchange built a quiet tension that threatened to explode. Arya herself was unaware of the full depth of Jinwoo's feelings. She had noticed moments, the protective gestures, the subtle teasing, the way he lingered near her in conversations. But she also respected boundaries, focusing on her work while feeling the pull between them, growing stronger each day. Even casual conversations in the office had sparks. "Don't take too long with the client, Arya," Jinwoo said one morning, voice low. "I won't," she replied, teasing lightly, "though I suspect you're hoping I trip over my words." "Perhaps," he muttered, almost under his breath, "though I doubt you ever do." The week ended with anticipation for the next big corporate gala, a formal event that would test both their professional composure and the unspoken connection between them. It was there that the next stage of their story, with all its intensity and stakes, would unfold. The night of the gala arrived, shimmering with golden lights, crystal chandeliers, and a soft hum of music that wrapped the grand ballroom in elegance. Arya stepped out of the car, her emerald gown hugging her silhouette, and immediately felt every eye on her. Cameras clicked, whispers of admiration followed her, and Jinwoo felt an unfamiliar pang twist inside him. He stood near the entrance, perfectly composed, but the tension radiating from him was palpable. "Ready to impress the world?" she whispered to him as they stepped inside. He barely nodded, jaw tight, eyes flickering with something he couldn't name, jealousy, desire, protectiveness, all coiled tightly together. He shadowed her movements, subtle yet deliberate, ensuring no one came too close. When a client leaned in to compliment her, Jinwoo's arm brushed hers, not aggressively, but enough to assert his presence. Arya caught the gesture and tilted her head, a teasing glint in her eyes. "Do you always guard your guests this closely?" He exhaled sharply, a flash of a smirk betraying him. "Only the ones who matter." The evening unfolded with laughter, clinking glasses, and elegant conversation, but beneath it all, the tension between them was electric. Arya's warmth and poise drew everyone in, yet Jinwoo's attention remained fixed, every glance and movement measured, protective, personal. As the gala's formalities wound down, Mr. Park approached them with a knowing smile. "Enjoying yourselves?" he asked, his eyes flicking between them, a subtle challenge in his tone. Arya smiled politely. "Yes, sir, it's remarkable." He chuckled softly. "And my son, is he behaving himself?" Jinwoo's jaw tightened. "I'm always in control," he muttered, but his eyes betrayed the truth. Finally, as the ballroom cleared, Arya found herself on the balcony, city lights glittering below, reflecting in the wet streets like 1,000 tiny stars. Jinwoo appeared behind her, silent, his presence grounding her even in the dizzying height of glamour around them. "Do you ever stop being flawless?" he asked quietly, tone softer, almost vulnerable. Arya laughed lightly, the sound mingling with the breeze. "Flawless? Hardly. I just keep moving forward." He turned to face her, his expression unreadable for a heartbeat. I don't like how I feel when you're admired by everyone else." Her heart skipped. "Jinwoo," she began, but he held up a hand. "Wait. You need to know. I can't hide it anymore. I like you. More than I should. More than I've ever liked anyone. And I can't pretend that my pride matters more than this." Arya stepped closer, closing the distance. Her eyes softened, warmth and honesty radiating from her. "I feel the same way. I felt it for a while, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you could ever let someone in." The words hung between them, heavy and full of emotion. For the first time, Jinwoo's facade cracked. He reached for her hand, fingers intertwining with hers, the touch electric. The city below shimmered like a mirror of their own hearts, reflecting the beginning of something neither had expected but both desperately wanted. The moment was perfect yet fleeting. A gust of wind caught Arya's hair, and she laughed softly, leaning into him. Jinwoo's protective instincts flared, not controlling, but enveloping. "You're not going anywhere, are you?" he murmured. She shook her head, smiling. "Not if I can help it." The following days were quieter, but filled with a new rhythm. At the office, their dynamics shifted subtly. Professional respect remained, but the air was charged with understanding and unspoken connection. Colleagues noticed the change, whispering about the new energy between the CEO and the translator. Even casual exchanges were layered with tension and affection. "Coffee break?" Arya asked one morning, glancing up at him. "I'll come," Jinwoo replied, and for once his voice carried warmth instead of command. They walked side by side through the sleek office hallways, fingers brushing occasionally, smiles exchanged in the quietest moments. The world hadn't changed, but the way they moved through it together had. By the end of the week, Mr. Park invited them once more, this time for an informal lunch. He studied them both with a satisfied smile. "You've handled each other well," he said, nodding. "I think this partnership, personal and professional, is going to work." Jinwoo's glance at Arya was soft but firm. "We'll make it work," he said quietly. Arya squeezed his hand subtly. "Together," she agreed. Later that evening, as the city lights reflected off rain-soaked streets, they walked hand in hand, the silence comfortable, the air filled with unspoken promises. Neon signs flickered above, and cars moved like rivers below, but for Arya and Jinwoo, the world was narrowed to the space between them. She glanced up at him, teasing lightly. "You know, you're not as intimidating when you hold my hand." Jinwoo's lips quirked, a genuine smile finally breaking free. "Don't get used to it," he said, though his grip on her hand didn't loosen. The two of them paused, looking out over the city, and for the first time Jinwoo allowed himself to breathe freely, to feel without restraint. Arya leaned into him, laughter spilling quietly in the night, and he responded with a quiet chuckle, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And as they walked away from the glowing skyline toward the promise of tomorrow, the audience could see the truth. Love, courage, and connection had conquered the distance, pride, and professional barriers that once stood in their way. If you've been captivated by Arya and Jinwoo's journey, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to see more stories filled with romance, drama, and emotional tension. Which moment touched you the most? Let us know below. The story closes with a lasting image. Fingers intertwined, city lights reflecting on wet streets. Two people finally moving in sync, not just in the corporate world, but in life and love.